Welcome. You're listening to the 365 Firsts podcast, a show filled with stories of experiencing first times and all the fun, growth, unknowns, and excitement that go with them. It's also the place to get expert advice, motivation, and inspiration to get in on trying new things. And now, here's your host, the master of first times, and chick you're trying to keep up with, Ann Bernard.
Yes, indeed. I am the chick you want to keep up with and the voice you want in your head, because I am the voice that tells you you can. Welcome to another episode of the 365 First podcast and Expert Advice Before Your First Time series. I am your host, Ann Bernard. Tomorrow is V-Day. That's Valentine's Day. And while that is actually not the most popular day to get engaged, it is in the top 10. It might, however, be the day you'll decide to propose to your significant other in the next few months. So let's make sure you are set up for success. My guest today to give you expert advice before your first time proposing is Michele Velazquez, and she has a unique and pretty awesome job. She is one of the co-founders with her husband of the Heart Bandits, a full-service proposal planning company known for planning proposals and romantic dates all over the world. Michele is an Air Force veteran who left her military and corporate career behind to start the Heart Bandits, a company she is truly passionate about. Her type A personality, no-nonsense attitude, and possessing the drive to do whatever it takes to bring her client's vision to life have been key to her successfully masterminding hundreds of perfect marriage proposals. Michele and her husband are regarded as romance and proposal experts. They have been featured in the New York Times, MSNBC, Good Morning America, Anderson Cooper Show, LA Times, and Brides Magazine, just to name a few. They are the go-to source for all things related to engagement and romance. They also own Ring Stash, the world's first thin engagement ring box. Welcome to the show, Michele.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You have one of the best jobs imaginable. How did you get started with becoming a marriage proposal planner and creating the Heart Bandits?
So it's actually kind of a funny story. About 10 years ago, my now husband proposed to me in a way that I didn't really like. He proposed to me on a boat, which I'm actually a little afraid of. And after the proposal, I asked him, what is the reason that you chose to propose to me on a boat? And his answer was, well, there's not a lot of resources out there for guys. I didn't know how to propose to you. As I dug deeper, I realized that he had scoured the internet. This was before Pinterest. This was before Instagram. And all he was coming up with were lists of ways to propose that involve things like propose on a boat. I came up with the idea, let's create a resource out there for people that are proposing so that they never have to go through this again. So that every person receiving a proposal will have an amazing proposal story. That's how the Heart Bandits was born.
Oh, wow. So how did he feel about doing that? Was he into it? Did you have to talk him into it? Or was he like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it.
I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've known him for a really long time. So I was always posing different business ideas to him. So when I posed this idea to him, he actually thought it was an amazing idea. He really did feel lost in the process.
Let's get started with, if someone is listening and they know that they're ready to propose to their significant other, what is the first thing that they need to consider and start thinking about?
The very first tip I have is to actually have a budget for the marriage proposal itself. One thing I've learned over 10 years is that the clients, when they think about getting engaged, they only think about the engagement ring. And then after they get it, they realize, oh, I have to figure out a way to propose too. And now I've spent all my money on the engagement ring and I don't have much left for the actual proposal. But the truth is that you can always upgrade a diamond later. You can never change a memory. You can never have that first proposal again. So it's very wise to actually budget money for the marriage proposal and, really make that a priority.
Okay, noted. That's the first note somebody should be writing down. So ballpark, just to help out, a percentage. Let's say you're going to pay, $7,000 on a ring. What percentage should you set aside for the actual proposal based on your experience?
Well, to be honest, it's not really a set amount. It depends on where you are in your life, because a great marriage proposal isn't about how much money you spend, but it is to show how much thought you put into this. So it's just part of the whole thoughtful, mindful process and really
Okay,
thinking about that ahead of time.
great. Okay, so let's get into it though. How does someone go about getting original and thoughtful? What are you on how they're going to propose?
One of the things I would just recommend avoiding is searching on Instagram and Pinterest. The better thing to do is to start without looking at any other resources and think about your relationship, your partner, and try to find something unique in that love story. I want something more unique and original. And the way you do that is by brainstorming and trying to think how your love story differs from everybody else's.
It's about the love story and it's about the person you're proposing to, and you should know that person very well. Now, what about picking the date? What should you like? I'm going to guess your recommendation is to not go with the most popular dates, but let's go for it. How does someone go about now picking the date that they're going to propose?
Yes, a lot of people get hung up on the date and they'll really want to combine major milestones in their relationships with the proposal date. So if your goal is to have a surprise proposal and have your partner not think it's coming, then I would definitely avoid anniversaries or major holidays. To be more about what works for you, what works for your schedule.
Right, because there's going to be a lot of planning that's going to go into this. What's the trick for keeping it a surprise and keeping it quiet?
The trick to keeping it a surprise is really limiting how many people you tell. One advantage to actually working with a proposal planner is you have one point of contact and then they do all the research for you, versus having a bunch of incoming calls, incoming texts, emails that all open the door to her potentially finding out.
Now, the planning. Like you said, if you do hire someone to do the planning, it gets a lot easier. But if you can't afford that and you're going to do a lot of the planning by yourself, how do you recommend that the person goes about making their plans to get their grand proposal? And by grand, I don't mean it needs to be a grand old affair, but grand in the intent of the proposal.
Right. If you don't have the budget or the need for a proposal planner, you just want to really make sure that you plan all of the details perfectly. Basically just make a list of every single thing that you need, and then you would start the research process. So another thing too is when you're doing that, you're going to want to address every point of failure. So that's one of the things that we do is we look at the overall idea and we come up with everything that could go wrong and how to make sure it doesn't go wrong, and then have a plan.
Now, making it a one-on-one event or inviting family, how do you go about deciding whether you should have an entire crew there or you just make it a more private proposal?
That's really based on the client and their preferences. I have seen a really big trend in wanting to include family and friends. And my caution for that is simply that when they start including all their family and friends, they start taking away the budget from the proposal to entertain guests. It's just a lot of pressure to include family and friends. But if that's something that they feel is super important to them, then by all means, they should go for it.
I think the wedding itself usually ends up being a lot about the guests and everybody that's coming, and it can be a stressful moment. And I think I would assume in the process of walking down the aisle with the proposal to, be good to make it a very significant, memorable event that's more private. But like you said, if family means a lot to you, then you might want the family there. But you should definitely at least have somebody there that can capture the moment, correct?
Yes, definitely. We definitely would recommend a professional photographer, or if there's a budget, a professional videographer. Going back to the day that I was proposed to, again, 10 years ago, Instagram didn't exist. But I was really sad because my husband didn't have a photographer, my boyfriend then, or anybody to capture the moment that he proposed to me. If you don't have the budget for a photographer, at least, make it happen so that somebody takes pictures.
All right. Well, speaking of if you have the budget, is hiring someone that is a professional at doing the planning. Can you get a little bit more details into like what kind of services you provide and how you ease this process and make it even more memorable?
Sure. So for some people that come to us, they just don't even have a proposal idea at all. idea creation is one of the services that we offer. And then we also do event planning, proposal planning, where we go through the concept that the client already has, or if they decided to use one of ours, and then we use our expertise and our connections to execute the vision. We already have all of that network in place. I can basically do anything you need at the drop of a dime. So we really save the client time and then stress from planning it. And as I mentioned before too, we address those failure points. So if you've never planned a proposal, you aren't going to think about all the things.
Oh, that is awesome and immensely beneficial. I was just wondering, what's some of the most memorable proposals that you've planned that like stick out, like your favorites? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that I really loved was for a client that they're like self-proclaimed jet setters. They've traveled all over the world. And then at the bottom of a pool, we had a monogram that said, "Fernanda, will you travel the world with me forever?" So it just sort of encompassed this whole love for travel and highlighting their experiences together.
Oh, wow. That sounds very beautiful. Okay. So final tip. What's the one big thing that people need to remember when they're doing this?
My final tip to everybody proposing is to enjoy the moment. Because as you can hear from this podcast, there are so many things that go into planning the perfect proposal.
Oh, that's a fabulous final tip and reminder. Now, I got to ask, because you brought it up. 10 years of doing this, have you ever been to a proposal where the person said no?
No, I get asked that a lot, and I have not had anybody say no, which is one of my tips. Make sure you know what the answer is going to be before you propose, because I can't think of anything that would just hurt somebody's soul.
All right. So where can people find you, Michele, on social media and find and book your services?
Our website is www.theheartbandits.com. And on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, we are @The Heart Bandits.
All right. That is very easy enough. All right. So I always have one final question for all of my guests. What is a first-time new experience that is on your list?
Well, being on a podcast was one of them. So thank you.
Yay!
This is my first time for that. But I also really want to travel to Thailand. I've never been there. I love Thai food. I think it's super pretty. So I hope to one day go there.
Well, I hope that it happens for you sooner than later. It is an incredible, amazing place to be. I know you're Air Force vet, and I spent 24 years in the Marine Corps, and we did Cobra Gold in Thailand. So I was there for about a month and a half. And the Thai people are just such sweet, amazing people. And Thailand is a great place. And the Thai food there is to die for.
Oh, I bet.
And
so spicy.
Yeah, and cheap. I mean, it is so cheap there. It's insane. Cool. So you will get your fill. Thank you, Michele, for being on the show. Really enjoy it. You passed some great information, shared some sweet and funny and great stories. So I really appreciate you being on the show.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the 365 First podcast. I certainly enjoyed having Michele as a guest. I wish you all a very happy Valentine's Day, no matter how you are going to be celebrating it. I know for me, it's just going to be another day. Valentine's has lost its significance a long time ago. Do not pity me. I'm perfectly okay with it. I definitely had my first time moving in with someone. I had my first time getting engaged. And while I guess you can never say never, I do not foresee ever having a first time getting married, which means no first time getting divorced. Not that I'm saying every marriage ends in divorce. What I'm saying is some firsts come before others. Oh, and you can count having a first kid. That's also out the window. Now, I don't doubt that those are amazing first times and new experiences. They're just not for me. And that is the beauty of life. You get to pave your own path and go down the road that you choose for yourself. All I'm out to do on this show is to expose you to all that is available to you, let you know that yes, you can do it, whatever it is that you choose to do. There's a smart way of approaching it so you get the best result possible. But at the end of the day, what matters is that you do get out there and have yourselves some first times and new experiences.
You've been listening to the 365 Firsts podcast. Hope you've gotten inspired to start your journey of first times and new experiences. Join the 365 Firsts Challenge by downloading the app at your local app store. Check out Next Level Firsts Coaching for additional assistance. Contact us if you want to share the stories of your latest firsts on the show. Now, go get busy having new experiences.